Well, good day, and welcome to another edition of the Storm Report. Today, I have a new friend and fellow Seminole, Nic Mau. He's coming into the storm shelter. We're going to talk with him today. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love it. The Storm Shelter. That's probably the best name for a podcast that I've heard so far.
Well, if it's a storm report, you got to be in the storm shelter to ride this thing out, right? So
That's
hopefully
right.
it won't be that bad where you feel like you have to ride out the storm. But anyway, so
No,
tell me a
that's
little bit
awesome.
about yourself, man. I know we talked a little bit before when we first met about being at FSU, which is probably one of the best universities that's going right now. But
Yeah,
let's hear it.
yeah, the best university, the Florida State University. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, Chip, and really grateful for the introduction through a mutual friend of ours, Steve Noodleberg, to make this connection. But yeah, a little bit about me. Obviously, my name is Nick. I'm 39 years old. I'm a Seminole grad in 2007, Florida born and raised. I've spent the bulk of my life living in Florida. Spent my younger days in Miami, living in South Miami, growing up in a great community down there, and then moved actually to Tallahassee for high school, which as a 13, 14-year-old kid was quite a culture shock going from Miami to Tallahassee.
Yeah,
It's one thing
okay.
when you go there for college, moving from South Florida. It's another to do that during your transitional ages from middle school to high school. So it was quite the shock for me. But loved every minute of Tallahassee. Took a little bit of getting used to. Lived in Tallahassee for 10 years. Went to FSU via TCC. So didn't apply myself as much as I should in high school, and fortunately had to work really hard, I think, to get to FSU. It wasn't an easy road for me to get there. Definitely had to work hard to get in and be accepted to the College of Business. But, went to Florida State, got into the College of Business after going to TCC, which is Tallahassee Community College for those that don't know.
Mhm.
And loved working in the business school, majored in real estate and finance, and left FSU with a job in hand right before the great financial crisis. So that was a really great thing for me. Moved back down to South Florida, made it almost all the way back to Miami, lived in downtown Fort Lauderdale for a couple of years, working for a Big Four accounting firm, Deloitte and Touche, in their real estate tax department. And I still do real estate tax appeals. That is the name of the game, is what I do. And I work for a company called First Point Advisors. I'm a partner in the company with one of my best friends and colleagues that I've been working with for 16 years now. Also
Wow,
Seminole. So we're a company full of Knowles, and doing our best to help our clients.
that's awesome.
So
You
that's
said you lived in Tallahassee for 10 years, right?
I did. Yeah.
So were you going to school that whole time, or did you you were working? Because I worked when I was in college, and it was an interesting dynamic because I took night classes and I worked during the day, and my roommate did not. His father
Yeah.
was an attorney, so his father would come up every once in a while and make him validate why he wasn't working. And it really rubbed his dad the wrong way that I was working all the time. It was
Yeah.
kind of funny, but
No, Chip, I can totally relate. So I've had a job basically since the time I was 16 years old. In high school, I started working at a place called Superlube, which is like Jiffy Lube. If you
yeah,
went to
I
FSU,
remember
you know
those. Yeah.
Superlubes all over the place. There were 24 of these oil change stores throughout Tallahassee, Leon County. And, as a 16-year-old junior in high school, my parents said, you need to get a job. If you want a car, you need to get a job. I said, okay. Looked at a couple of different places, looked at, being a vet tech, looked at, working at, a pool store, different things like that. And just nothing really, resonated with me. I've always liked working with my hands, always enjoyed being around cars. And, my mom dropped me off at a Superlube down the street from the house. I put in an application, got hired, was getting paid minimum wage to go downstairs under the cars and drain the oil and do all
Yeah,
that stuff. Um,
funny.
And I actually ended up working my way all the way up to an assistant store manager while I was in high school. So ended up, once I graduated, when I was going to TCC, I was working 40 hours a week as an assistant store manager for the store on Tharp and Tharp and High.
Oh
So
yeah,
it
I
was
know exactly where that is. Yeah.
right there on the corner.
Yeah.
So did that for a number of years. And then once I transferred over to Florida State, I took a step back from working full-time as an assistant manager. It was a floating manager for a little while, kind of working, less than 40 hours a week. And then ultimately I did leave that company and then went to work for a clothing company in the mall, which was a little bit easier and definitely helped my social life a little bit more than changing oil.
Being a grease monkey, really.
Yeah, exactly. Literally a grease monkey. Yep. Yep. So,
Well, I feel like that's really important. The fact that you had that work ethic instilled in you early on, because I was the same way. And, it's kind of funny. I tell people this story about my father. And, at the time it seemed like he was being a jerk, but he was really teaching me a life lesson. You know, High school would be over with. He would give me a week to basically do nothing. And then on Monday morning, when he was getting ready to go to work, he'd wake me up. He goes, I want you to get dressed and go find a job. Don't come home until you find a job. So basically, he kicks me out of the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving around. I grew up in Sarasota, so I'm driving around
yeah.
Sarasota trying to apply for jobs because I'm like, it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12. So finally, I went to a Wendy's, and they're like, yeah, can you sign your name on this piece of paper? And I'm like, yeah, like you're hired. I'm like, sweet. So I
Yeah.
had my that was my win for the day is I got a job working at Wendy's. But
I love it.
but the more I think about it is like if I didn't have that push, that nudge, I would probably be, just sitting around doing nothing. But
Yeah. No,
early
absolutely.
on, that was the thing that was a life lesson that I learned. So
I agree 100%. I think I attribute it to two things, right? I mean, my father and my mother. My father was a very hard worker. He worked, grew up in the Great Depression era. Was born in 1935. He lived through the end of the Great Depression. He lived through World War II. He was a hard worker. He was in academia. He just valued education and hard work, and he instilled that in me, as did my mother. And I just knew that if I wasn't playing in athletics, if I wasn't playing a sport, if I wasn't busy doing that, I was required to have a job. And that was, sort of the requirement. And so I think there is some importance to instilling that in your kids. It was like your father instilled it in you. It was instilled in me. I didn't play sports in high school. I wrestled for a little bit, didn't click with it. I had other things that I was interested in and got myself into trouble too much. And so in order to keep myself out of trouble, I was not forced. I was told to have a job to keep myself busy. And it
yeah,
certainly helped me, get myself out of trouble, and keep myself there and keep myself building that work ethic that still, I have today.
yeah.
I agree completely. It's something that I'm, definitely instilling in my children with athletics and with, extracurricular activities and finding a purpose and finding, a why, and things to keep you motivated and busy.
Yes. No, I totally agree. And it's funny because like my daughter, I did the same thing to her. Not really. I didn't kick her out of the house because she didn't have a car. But I basically told her like, you just can't sit on your bed and look at TikTok videos. You're gonna have to do something over the summer. But
Yeah.
talking about work, and one of the questions that I always like to ask people when they come here is, what was the biggest storm in your life, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Okay. It's a really good question. So I would say I have a couple of storms that are interesting stories. So as a child, not as a child, I guess as an adolescent, as a teenager, very insecure kid, ran with the wrong crowd, got myself into trouble, ended up getting into some pretty big trouble in Tallahassee as a high school kid, and then ended up getting arrested and shipped off to boarding school for 2 years. I'll call it boarding school, but an outdoor sort of boarding camp, if you will. Spent my sophomore year, the end of my freshman year and my sophomore year in an outdoor group therapy program, helping me overcome anger issues, substance abuse problems, different things that, 13, 14-year-old kids, have issues with, but many people are able to overcome them without this kind of support. It was something that I needed, and it was definitely a big, transition in my life, helping me understand and get through some of the big challenges that I had as a young kid, rebelling against authority and just, doing what I wanted to do. And for whatever reason, making those choices, just running with the wrong crowd and letting the peer pressure get to me,
Wow.
and I got through that, and the lessons that I learned from that, and then, continuing on with the support from my parents, as a, 16, 17-year-old kid in high school, really helped me get past those challenges and instill the discipline, the self-discipline that I have, the accountability that I have for myself now, and then the empathy that I have for other people that are going through challenges in situations like that, whether it be an adult or an adolescent, a child, a teenager, having struggles. So that was, probably one of the biggest storms that I had as a young kid, that really sort of helped frame, the way that I look at things in my life. So
Mm-hmm.
challenging, but self-induced, might
Yeah.
I add.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because that can be difficult to share with people,
Sure.
and I'm not a big sharer of feelings, and I don't, because I feel like, hey, this is my issue. I don't want to burden other people with it. But, you know, I feel like it's important for people to share stories like that, because everyone has these things going on in their life.
Yeah.
And, you're not alone, right? You're not by yourself. And, when you share things like this with people, they'll support you, if
Yeah.
they have a heart, which I think most people do.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, for the longest time I kept that really close to the belt. I never told anybody about it. Most people in my professional life didn't have any idea that, oh, as a kid, I was, in really big trouble. You look at me now, I follow the rules. I volunteer, I do a lot of good things. I try to at least do a lot of good
Yeah.
things. And you wouldn't look at me and see a 13-year-old kid that was doing drugs and stealing and doing things like that. But that was me. I mean, that was the kid that I was. I made some really bad choices as a young kid. And thankfully I had the support from, my parents and the legal system, and, the support from the people at the facility that I went to, that got me through that supported me through that, both during my time there and after, and the support. So it was challenging time, but it was something that I think was needed for me to go through in order to come through the other side and see how life should really be.
So, do you have kids of your own now,
I
or
do. I
okay?
so
Have you shared
I'm
that
part
with
of,
them, or
they're a little young, so I
yeah?
haven't really shared details. I've, expressed to them that, daddy had some challenges when he was a young kid, and he understands, the things that they go through. So I'm divorced. That's another storm that I went through as an adult. But so I'm divorced, and I am now in a relationship with an absolutely amazing woman named Kristen, and we have a blended family of 5 kids and the two of
Wow.
us. So I have 2 boys that are 6 and 9, and Kristen, my bonus kids, as I call them, are twin boy girls that are boy girl twins, excuse me, that are 9, and a 13-year-old boy. So we
Wow.
have our hands full from, the full spectrum of the ages, and it's definitely conversations, that we will be having, that I'll be expressing. If I ever see the struggles in the children that I had, I'll certainly be willing to share that information with them 100%, because I'm
Yeah.
transparent.
Yeah.
If I can
Well,
learn from it, help them.
yeah. And it's funny because, well, that's not funny, but what I meant was, it's ironic because, my daughter's 19 and she's in college, and I had these conversations with her about stuff that I did, and because I got in trouble, like every kid gets in trouble, right? They do stupid stuff, and I
Of
did a
course.
lot of dumb things. And my daughter's the opposite. She's like the total rule follower.
Yeah.
If somebody said to her, "Hey, you got to stand in that line and you can't move," for 10 minutes. She would actually do it. I say, when I was your age, if someone told me to do that, I'm like, I would say, why? Like that was me. So I tell
Yeah.
her these stories, and just she laughs at them. She thinks they're funny because, I do it in a self-deprecating way to say, hey, look, this is what I did when I was your age. Don't do that. Just don't do that. And
Yeah.
I always tell the story about when I went to FSU, I got dropped off, and like a lot of kids had fake. Me and my buddies made fake IDs in our garage over the summer, and
Who
so
didn't have one of those at FSU?
it's crazy, isn't it? And then what I did is I went to the worst place. Like my parents literally dropped me off. We did the weekend where we move in, and they're like, all right, we're leaving. See ya. And they're getting on the road. They're driving back. I decide, hey, I'm going to go down to Mike's Beer Barn and
Oh,
buy a sixer. You know what I mean? And make some friends in the dorm. So that was the worst place you could possibly go with a fake ID. So I go in there, I give it to the guy. He looks at it, looks at me. He comes back with this, those big plastic barrels that they sell those cheese balls in from like Costco or something.
yep.
And it's got stuff in the bottom of it. And I'm looking at it. And while I'm looking at it and trying to figure out what it is, he gets a pair of scissors and cuts it in half and drops it in there. And he points at me and he goes, if you ever come back here again with a fake ID, I'm going to call the cops. And I'm like, okay. So I ran out, and I'm thinking to
Yep.
myself as I'm driving back to the dorm, I lived in Smith Hall at the time. I'm like, my parents are probably not even at Lake City right now. And I almost had to call them and tell them to bail me out of the jail. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah.
like freaking out. And I think that was probably the best learning experience I had. If you think about it, like being right on campus and having that happen to you,
Yeah.
then I'm like, all right, I'm not at home anymore. People aren't playing around. I gotta,
Yep.
walk the straight and narrow to a certain degree. But
Yeah. I'll tell you though, the way that person, that man handled that situation with you changed the trajectory of your life. He could have called the cops and
you
then it
could
would
have.
have been a totally different story. But the fact that he had the wherewithal to snip the ID, give you an opportunity, but scare you, I think was amazing. I mean, because
Yeah.
had it gone a different way, you might have followed a different path. It may have been
Yeah.
a way for you to say, oh, well, now you're going to rebel against it or whatever. But I think that's a really awesome story. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And my daughter laughs. She tells people, "Hey, Dad, tell the story about." I'm like, "All right," and it's funny now when you sit back and you look at it, it's funny. But at the time,
Yeah.
it was like, "Oh crap!" Like, could you
Yeah.
imagine having to call your parents from like being locked up and they're not even home yet? Like, and that was
Yep.
before cell phones, so they probably wouldn't even have gotten the message till they got home. And then what are
Yeah,
they do?
exactly.
5 hours away. You know what I mean?
The
Like,
the only worst place you could have gone with that ID would have been Bullwinkle's. Then you would have gotten in more trouble.
yeah, probably. Yeah. But it was a Sunday afternoon, so.
Yeah, true. Yep, true.
So, hey, let's. I wanted to. I like to ask this question too. For business people, professionals like yourself. But if you had a tip for somebody, like what are the things that you feel are important to make people succeed in business?
Great question. So, I mean, first, I think success is a definition and it's different for everybody. Like, what is success for you as a
Mhm.
person, right? I think, first of all, you kind of have to figure out what is your definition of success. Okay. And that I think will set point you in the direction of where you need to go in terms of, what you believe is success. One thing that I would say that has helped me immensely, just both personally and professionally, and productivity and attitude, is a solid morning routine. This is something that I discovered as a 35-year-old. I've always been physically active, into fitness and things of that nature, but I never had a solid morning routine that I could dial into and have the consistency to help me sort of set the trajectory of my day. I would wake up, I would do my thing for the longest time, and then I would just let the day take me. And I would react instead of being proactive. And the way that I kind of say it now is beat the day, don't let the day beat you. So I'm up before the sun is up. I'm up at 4 o'clock most days. 4:30. I get my quick morning meditation in. I get a run in, a workout in if I have time. And then I journal really quickly in my 5-minute, morning meditation journal. ice bath or cold shower, just something to get my body awake. I have a consistent morning routine that I do to help me plan my day and set me up. I take care of myself first thing in the morning because I know that I'm not going to have the time to do it later on. We have, business to run as a partner in a company. I'm, running a business, and there's, 8 other people that are relying on me to be there to help them. I have, my 5 children and Kristen, relying on me to be the best version of myself every day. And I have to get myself into that position. And I'm not perfect because I definitely have days where I am not the person that I want to be. And I have to hold myself accountable to that. And, sometimes it takes getting called out by a loved one or a friend, to sort of, realize that. And that kind of goes into the next piece that I wanted to say, which is, even if it's not a formalized thing, in your own mind, have a personal board of directors. Have a group of close-knit friends or colleagues or professional people that you are very close with that you can rely on to help put you in a position to succeed, can help hold you accountable, that you can go to when you're having a struggle, or that you can bounce ideas off of. Having those close people, whether you tell them that they're on your board of directors or not, or whether they're just in your mind, and that you go to them with these things and seek their advice and accountability, that's really important. Having those close 2, 3, 4 people that you can rely on and count as your personal board of directors. I think it's really, really important to help hold you accountable.
That's interesting, and it's I've actually heard that, and that was one of the things that was shared with me when I first started. Where I'm at now at Lockton, and the guy who runs our producer development program had said to me when I first met with him, is he said, set up your own board of directors. Find some people that you can, either it's a mentor, it's a client, it's somebody that you respect, to have that to lean on and talk with them. So it's interesting that you say that, because I heard that. He was the first person who ever told me that, and that was 3 years ago. And it wasn't until now that I've heard that again. So that's great.
And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything formalized. You don't have to tell the people that that they're on your board of directors. But if you feel comfortable with certain people, and that they are the type of people that are gonna care for you and hold you accountable, at the same time have your best interests in mind, and you can do the same for them, then it's going to do nothing but good things for you. You want to surround yourself with people that are going to help make you better, not set you back, right? So that's really what I think is really important, is to have those people in your life. And like I said just a minute ago, sometimes it takes one of these people. If you're having a bad day or you're feeling sorry for yourself or something, it takes a person to just say, hey, don't make me feel bad. Like, let's get you need to figure this out. And, this is what you need to do, or here's some guidance on it. Like, sometimes it takes somebody shaking you a little bit to get you out of a funk and help you see the path that's right in front of you for what it is.
Agreed. No, that's great. Well, Nic, hey, thanks for spending your day with me today. It's been great. It's been insightful, really, it has. And I really appreciate you sharing the story of your, younger days, some of the issues that you had, and how you overcome them, which is, it's great. So
absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Hey, I look forward to talking with you again. And this has been great. So.
Likewise, I appreciate you having me on the storm report and in the storm shelter. I think we went through the storm.
We weathered the storm. We're going to come out. It's going to be a bright, sunny day, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate the opportunity, and go Knowles.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.